Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Everything School HQ, days away, but we're back. I'm recovering. No potting for several days. We didn't get to do our college football recap show on Sunday night this week. I didn't do any shows this weekend. I was in and out of consciousness, recovering, being sick for the last 5 days here. So I'm happy to be back and talking ball, and it only makes sense to have a first pod back after several days away, which is just weird as someone who records literally every day, to not have that consistency and that continuity day in, day out. It is very frustrating for me to not get that content out and have stuff to do. But with all that being said, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, down there in Tequila, Georgia. He's here. He's back. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. I'm not gonna lie, man. I missed our chat. I missed our little talks every Sunday night to talk about the college football weekend. I feel like so much happened this past weekend. We didn't get to give our piece on it, But hey, I'm glad you're feeling better because that's the health is the most important thing, right?
I mean, it is, and gotta tell you, you value it more and more when you go in the trenches. I don't wish the fever shakes on anybody. Like it's the worst. Like you're just miserable. It was not a pleasant experience, but we are on the mend, knock on wood here. So first pod back. We obviously did not do our recap show for week 5 or week 6. See, I'm still getting what are we in now? Week 7? What is this, Matt?
Yeah, that was week 6. We're coming up on week 7.
The season just keeps going, man. The season keeps going. But don't forget, folks, every Sunday night and Wednesday night we tape the full ride here on the Chase Thomas podcast. So if you are a college football fan, make sure you stop in and on this feed and look out for that on your Thursday morning and Monday morning commutes during the college football season. Follow Matt on social at Matt_W_Green. Follow myself at Chase_Thomas. Email us if you have any college football questions for us at chasethomaspodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at Chase Thomas. You can also watch this very show if you're watching us on YouTube. First, thank you, and hope you enjoy and watching this very show each week. And you can do so and make sure you never miss our video productions and clips and shorts and all that good stuff. All my interviews and all that good stuff. YouTube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Then, of course, check out the website chasethomaspodcast.com for more information on the show and all the links and good stuff that you need on the new website, chasethomaspodcast.com. Matt Green, to refresh the good folks about what happened over the weekend. I'm not gonna lie, because it's been so long that it's been a week removed and I was just in and out of consciousness all weekend and watched what I could. I have no idea how I did this weekend. I don't know what to expect here. Many say that I should get it thrown out if I did poorly because I was coming down with the sickness unknowingly towards the end of last week. So could I really?
Yeah, let's just throw it out.
Oh, okay.
We'll just throw it out. Not important how he did. How anybody? Why are we even keeping score? We're just trying to have a good time.
Oh, I thought you were just agreeing. Okay, I didn't know what you meant by the throw it out originally. Now you're actually being a friend. I thought you were going the other way there. You were actually being nice in this regard.
Yeah, I'll do you a solid and not tell the listeners about how much better you did than me this week in week 6, man. So Texas A&M. First of all, I blame Jimbo Fisher. That was an amazing game, but you remember at the end of the game when Anais Smith caught that touchdown, but he actually stepped out at the 3 and they overturned it. It was I felt like everyone knew, is like, man, they're not gonna fucking score now. Like you just felt Alabama was gonna stop them, and it was what ended up taking another minute off the clock, and they only ended up with a field goal. If that would have counted, A&M would have lost by 2, and it would have been a loss, but they still would have covered that 3.5 point spread. But they did not, unfortunately. So Zeus's home dog of the week missed just for the second time of the season. But you, sir, went 7-4 overall on the weekend and 7-3-1 against the spread. So excellent weekend on your end. Your boy over here, not so hot. 4-7 overall, 4-6-1 against the spread. So, it was not my weekend. I feel like a lot of my losses were good losses. I feel like there were some close ones in there. But
champion of life, Matt Green.
That's you can't. Oklahoma State. I believed in the weekday, the road game. I believed in it as far as against the spread, but I didn't go full upset on Oklahoma State. I regretted that one on Friday night, but it is what it is. Georgia finally covered for the first time this season. Notre Dame let both of us down. So I think you had at least Louisville against the spread, but yeah, it was a long weekend.
Man, yeah, the Louisville result still surprised me the most of anything over the weekend.
And then the Braves also losing the Phillies in game 1. Obviously, now we sit here after a game 3 loss. Hopefully, the Braves can somehow force this series to go back to Atlanta. But so not my greatest weekend overall. Obviously, the Dogs won. That beats everything. But yeah, not from my prognostication standpoint.
It's also nice when your team's on a bye. Like, obviously, I mean, it would have been better if I was not sick all weekend, but being able to just pick and choose and watch on multiple screens and not be emotionally drained from the result of your team for 3.5 hours and not be drawn in where your eyes go. Like, it's nice. Obviously, I missed UT football over the weekend, but honestly, it was nice to get a little break and to watch all the other stuff that I got to watch and not like Oklahoma and Texas and all the other
that's
great
game
moments.
Of the year so far. I think Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, that was incredible. Has there been a better game?
Notre Dame Ohio State was really good.
That was a great game for sure. I felt like Sarkisian mismanaged it at the end, like playing for the field goal. You don't play for the field goal in a shootout. You gotta get the touchdown at the end. It felt like they got too conservative. And if you're gonna play for the if you're gonna play for the field goal, you gotta kick that with 10 seconds left in the game or something. You can't just, I don't know. That was, I feel like the one thing, it seems like they weren't aggressive enough, but I don't think anyone was really picking Oklahoma. So shout out to Oklahoma. I think that's a total game changer as far as this season goes. Like when you're just, as far as, just evaluating, like Texas was starting to look like that team that was the number one. I mean, they were starting to get a lot of those first place votes instead of Georgia. And Oklahoma, I feel like we were all asleep on Oklahoma the whole year. I'm a big year 2 head coach guy, and I wasn't even talking about Brent Venables and Oklahoma taking that jump. And I mean, right now, they have as good a claim as any to be number 1 team in the country, right? At least a top 5 team.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big win for them, and it's weird because I still just don't think they're better than Texas. It was such a weird ending and such a weird game where I'm like, it was great. I'm glad it happened, but if they play that game 100 times, like Texas had 3 points and 3 red zone trips, and like there's some weird stuff where I'm like, I think both are great. I think Oklahoma is a lot better than I thought they were to this point, but I didn't lose a lot of like, oh no, what does this mean for Texas? And I don't know if that's what it.
I feel like Oklahoma's like, oh yeah, there was an era where Oklahoma played defense and like they were flying around the field offensively, but they were also flying around the field defensively. It's like that was the golden era of Texas, the early 2000s. It's like let's go back to that stuff.
Yeah,
I forgot what it looked like for Oklahoma to play defense.
I agree, Matt Green. Sir, let's get into some quick notes before we get into our week 7 picks here, sir. Also, wait, you didn't say what the now season stats. Do you have the season accumulation stats?
I do.
With everybody?
So you are 48-18 overall. I am 44-22, 4-game lead. And then against the spread, you are 40-24-2 on the season. I am 36-28-2. So quality lead you got there. 4 games, both against the spread and overall.
We love to see it, Matt Green. We love to see it. Let's see if I can build on that this week. Speaking of building on stuff, some Kentucky fans would like to build on these 8-4, 7-5 seasons that Mark Stoops has put together in Lexington over the last decade, and a lot has been made about what he was saying on the coaches show this week over there in Kentucky after getting drubbed by the Dogs in Athens on Saturday night under the lights, Matt Green. But when you look at the context for what Stoops said, and the fan who was just, I'm sure not the only Kentucky fan, kind of just dismayed after another top 25 team. There was some hype going into the game. Is like, could they upset Georgia and Athens, this, that, and the other? And then just kind of a demoralizing defeat. Like, they played better a year ago at home and took Georgia to hell basically with them in that really ugly offensive performance on both sides in Lexington a year ago. But this was kind of what happened 2 years ago in Athens, and just kind of when you hype it up and then it's like, oh, right, they're not even close when these two teams are both hyped going into the contest. And I understand why fans, like, if you're a Kentucky fan, you're starting to get a little bit anxious about the progress. Have you reached the ceiling, this, that, and the other? And then Stoops is like, I thought it was just kind of funny, because if you watch the video, he's not like mad. Like, to me, he was just like, look, man, like, I'm winning a lot of games at Kentucky. I'm the best Kentucky football, like, obviously Barrett Bryant, but he wasn't there this long. Like, I'm the best Kentucky coach you'll probably have in your lifetime. Like, I'm really good. I've been really good for your program for a long time. I've made you forget about basketball season for a couple months in the fall. Like, it's actually pretty nice, pretty good deal. Not a lot of high school talent in the state of Kentucky. Like, it's a really tough job. No one's won here before me. Like, no one's probably going to win here after me. But if you really want to get to Georgia, guess what? It's going to just require a lot more. And you're not going to do that anyway. And it's not realistic anyway. So it's like, what do you want? And that was just kind of that vibe to me from watching that and listening to what Stoops said. Did you garner the same impression from what Stoops said, Matt Green?
Yeah, for sure. It felt just kind of matter of fact, like, and I think he said like the paying players thing with Georgia. I think he clearly was like, because that's not against the rules anymore. I think he clearly like kind of heard how that sounded and was like not trying to throw shade at Georgia. He's just like, this is what the game is. And if you guys want to play that game, and I don't know the context too, like, our fans are on call-in shows now getting upset with Kentucky? Is this not enough? Like, if that's the case, like, yeah, I can understand where he's coming from. He's just like you're essentially the Oakland A's and Georgia's the Boston Red Sox. Like, you're not playing the same game. Like, yeah, you can scheme and do all the things you want, but at the end of the day, they're a big market club, and they're doing what it takes to win championships. And Kentucky's not doing that, and they've never done that. So if their Kentucky fans are really upset about it, then he's kind of just a victim of his own success, right? Because it's kind of similar on a different scale. If you look at Georgia and Mark Richt, like, the previous 97 years of Kentucky football before Mark Stoops, they had 2 10-win seasons. And the 11 years he's been at Kentucky, they've had 10-win seasons. They've gone to 22 bowl games in their history. 7 of those are under Mark Stoops. It's going to be 8 in 23 years. It's going to over 33% of their bowl games all time are with Mark Stoops as their head coach. So, yeah, maybe he did, like, kind of like Mark Richt, start to finish top 10, and Georgia was like, ooh, this tastes good. We want more. Like, he brought on those expectations. Like, when you look at Mark Stoops, it's like, yeah, we're actually going to bowl games and finish the season ranked. Football is actually a fun sport to be good at. And maybe they want to be really good, but it seems like if they want to be good, it's okay, put your money where your mouth is, because that's all it really takes. Because Mark Stoops is one of the best coaches out there. He's as good of a coach as you need. And that's why we've talked about Kentucky being this perfect job, right? Kind of sarcastically, like how Chase Daniel has the perfect job or Matt Leinart had the perfect NFL career. Like, he's got the solid SEC contract without the SEC expectations of, like, basically every program in this conference thinks they should be winning SEC. Like, you look at Arkansas doesn't really have anything that Kentucky doesn't have, except for some history of being good at football. And so the missing bowl games, the 6-6, the 7-5 doesn't sit well with them. Whereas Kentucky's going 6-6, 7-5, like, okay, solid. We're going to another bowl game. Like, so it's a completely different thing. And maybe honestly, you think this is Mark Stoops like laying the groundwork for leaving for another job? Because like he's been at Kentucky for so long. It's kind of like him, I don't know, like Arthur Blank saying, we could always go to somewhere else if you don't build the stadium. Like he's just like, if you guys want to be a big market club and be big donors, we can take Kentucky as high as you want, or I could go to Michigan State or something where they are going to pay more money for whatever it needs to be compete at the championship level.
No, I wondered too about how long he is for this job in Lexington. I mean, because it's clear he understands like where this program can go, where they're at. Like he's a smart guy. He's just he was a great DC at Florida State. He's won at Florida State. Like he's seen the highs of the highs. He was the DC on the championship team, right? With Jimbo? Am I misremembering that? Or he was the DC, wasn't he? In their title team with Jameis?
Jeremy Pruitt, I want to say, was the DC on that 2013 team. He was, I want to say his Florida State days might be like Bobby Bowden era.
Was he all the way back then?
He's been around for a while because I mean he's been a head coach when Jimbo won a national championship. He was probably at Kentucky already.
His last year at Florida State was 2012.
Oh, okay. So the 2013 was the national championship.
Yeah, so he was right before. Okay, so that was Pruitt who came in right after him. So he was 1 year off from that. But
so
either way,
helped build that.
Yeah, 100%. So I just like Michigan State, is that something that interests him? But like Northwestern, that's not a better job, obviously, than Kentucky and that kind of thing. So it's like there's not really a lot open right now that I think would be all that appetizing potentially to.
I think
Mark
Michigan State is a better job than Kentucky, though.
Like, for sure. But
I think they are at least going to try to spend money like the big boys.
Well, you've seen them in the playoff. Like they can get into the playoff.
Yeah,
like we've seen,
sure.
like the best version of Michigan State can still make the playoff. The best version of Kentucky, I don't think can ever make the playoff. And that's the other part of it too. Is like I would have hung up on anyone getting mad over that if I'm Stoops. I'm like, I've beaten Florida 3 straight years. Do you understand that? Like Kentucky wasn't even smelling the jockstrap of Florida for 20 plus years. And you're over here like complaining like that Georgia, the best program in the last 3 years, is drubbing you like on the road. Like it's just okay. That's not where you're not going to get to Georgia's level, but can you push Tennessee 2 years ago? Like maybe we'll see how Tennessee plays in Lexington this year. Like you get Mizzou on the road this week. I mean, you look at the rest of the East, it's not like Kentucky is in this bad place. It's just Georgia. You look at even in the West, like you look at Arkansas right now. You look at who has a better fertile situation. You have Jimbo at Texas A&M with some more in-game issues, punting at 4th and 1 on the 4th. Like it could be so much worse if you're a Kentucky fan. I just wouldn't push Stoops. Like the Kentucky fans pushing Stoops, I'd be like,
No, they definitely shouldn't. But let's be honest, Stoops should get out now.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get a lot worse. Because like that stat that you saw that what did a caller pull out that stat? That he's beaten two SEC teams with a winning record the entire time he's been the head coach.
That finished with a winning record
the entire time he's been a head coach. And like a lot of that has been some down years of the SEC East. Like, let's be honest, like there's been some very weak years of the SEC East. And we know Kentucky's had a super weak out of conference schedule every year. Like I don't know any of other than the Louisville game every year. I off the top of my head, I can't remember a Power 5 school Kentucky's played out of conference. So, I mean, they could have played one. I could be wrong, but Kentucky with this new SEC, other than Louisville every year. But Kentucky with this new SEC schedule, they're not going to be able to hide from anybody. So I think there's a reason why, like, he's elevated them to mediocre, but like that's all they are. It's like, it's not to be disrespectful to Kentucky, but like they are like exactly average, because I feel like if you're better than Kentucky, you're good. And if you're worse than Kentucky, you're bad. So they're just kind of and it feeds into that. Like, they have 2 wins over teams that have actually finished with winning records on the season. So, or in SEC play as far as that goes. So, but that's like a huge feat at Kentucky to get them to the point where they beat all the bad teams. Like they were one of the bad teams before. But yeah, if there's any like pressure, any like, I don't know, like getting tired of not doing more, like Mark Stoops should just go ahead and bounce, because this is probably as good as it's going to get for Kentucky.
I know what the job is for him, and it actually might come up this offseason. I
thought Michigan State was a good call, to be honest.
I think they can do better. Maybe I'm wrong. I think Michigan State can do better, but he's not a bad fallback. You know the job, and they should make it. It's a no-brainer. It's Iowa.
Is Iowa a better job than Kentucky?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think just the fact that you're in the SEC, I think if you're leaving Kentucky, you're going to leave for someone who can win a national championship. I don't know that Iowa can win a national championship.
But it can make the playoff. Iowa can make the playoff. There's an identity there. There's certain kind of players you can get over there.
With the new Big Ten, they're going to say similar situation as Kentucky. The Big Ten West isn't going to be just super weak and get.
I don't know. I've seen elite Iowa over the last 20 years. I've never seen elite.
Have we though? I mean, we had Brad Banks. They were really
Drew
good.
Tate. No, there's been some elite Iowa.
Drew Tate is not elite Iowa. That's like
Albert. What was his
Iowa.
name? Albert Young, number 21. What was his name back in the day?
I don't know. Sean Green, like
Ricky
that was not
Stanzi,
elite. That was
Sean
not elite
Green, yeah.
Iowa. Like there's the year they went undefeated. What was like 2015, 2016 or something, and lost in the Big Ten championship. But I think a lot of it was playing a super weak Big Ten West, and they just didn't get exposed until the Big Ten championship. Iowa, you can't win a national championship. You can't get better players at Iowa.
You can't win a national title, but I think it's a better job than Kentucky. Those are two separate conversations. I still would maintain they have more of a commitment to football.
What would Mark Stoops leave for?
He was also. You remember? Do you know where he played college ball at?
Is he
Iowa.
Arizona? Oh, he
played
at
Iowa?
Was
an Iowa defensive back.
Okay.
Little Kirby action.
Did the other Stoops? Was Mike Stoops the head coach at Arizona? Is that right? Okay.
But I think Mark was actually a DC at Arizona at one point, too.
Yeah, he was DC and DB coach. I'm looking at that now.
So there you go. I don't know. Maybe that's where he ends up. Or he just stays and he has a really happy, normal life. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, like you said, it's the best job in America, being the head football coach of Kentucky when you're doing well. Like, everything's gravy. You beat Florida 3 years in a row. It's okay.
For sure. And talking a little bit just about the Georgia Kentucky from last week, like I think that's why, like as a Georgia fan, it's like, yeah, Kentucky, I respect what they've done on a national level, but just from a respect level, but they're not going to beat Georgia. And I was probably more down on Georgia going into this week, but I thought they would cover. But you were predicting the offensive explosion, sir, and that's what we got. I think this is what people have been waiting to see from Georgia, putting up 51, this offense. I think Carson Beck might be the best quarterback in the SEC. I'm going to say that right now. Like, I think Georgia might have the best passing game attack in the SEC this year. I think when it's all said and done. Jaden Daniels has looked great, but this passing attack, when it hits its stride, like, I mean, look at, you got 5 deep at wide receiver. Brock Bowers, the best, honestly, probably the best player in college football. What is this? What are you disagreeing with me right now?
5 deep? Who are the 5 deep that you trust out wide right now? Who are the 5 consistent wide outs?
Well, if you include Brock Bowers, obviously.
Okay, we got Brock.
Ra Thomas, Dominic Lovett.
Hold on. Are we saying Ra through 5-6 games? He's consistent? You're dead set on him.
This is a guy that's played SEC
No.
football.
I'm saying this year. We're talking about this year that you are certain can be counted on. It's like as a
good quality SEC level. Like,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely not Arian Smith. Ladd hasn't been available most of the year.
No, not Arian Smith. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, and then Ladd would be your 5th receiver. It's like, This is a guy that led them in catches a year, or led them in touchdowns, or no, I guess Brock led them across the board. He led all receivers in catches and touchdowns and everything. So I think this passing game, I mean, you look, they're Carson Beck's leading the SEC in yards per game right now. I want to say Georgia's leading the SEC in pass attempts. Like this.
But I mean, it's still not better than LSU. No one's catching LSU this year. Like a healthy Jalen Daniels, Neighbors, and Thomas and company is just it's not fair. It's filthy. They're never really out of a game. Like their defense is trash, and they're just over here. Like I guess we'll score 57 at Mizzou to win this one. Like,
but I think that's the difference too. Is that Georgia is not going to have to get into shootouts like LSU, so they're not going to be throwing for 4 quarters the same way. So the stats might not look the same at the end of the day, but like Carson Beck is like as good a quarterback as a team needs to win a national championship. Like and honestly, especially when you look at this Georgia running game, they're not doing it typical Georgia style, right? This is a pass first offense. Like the passing game is definitely the strength of this team. And like Mike Bobo, a lot been said about Mike Bobo, and he was dialing up some great play calls on Saturday. So I thought Georgia looked good. That's what people have been waiting to see. This offense looking explosive and everything. And Kendall Milton, maybe the running game gets healthy and they finally, see what they can do. But I think you knew that Kentucky was not going to run on Georgia the way they ran on Florida the week before. So I think that was big time. It's hard to it's hard to say anything about the Vanderbilt game. It's Georgia Vanderbilt, and I'm sure it's going to be about 75% Georgia fans in that stadium. And what was the last touchdown Vanderbilt scored was 2018 on Georgia. Is that the stat? So yes. Georgia can probably pick their score in this one, drop another 50 spot if they want, call off the dogs at 40-0 if they want. I don't know. I doubt this one's going to be competitive at all.
But I'm surprised you didn't mention the one thing that I wonder if this is going to be the permanent transition. And part of it's just personnel, part of it's injuries. But I wonder if Georgia fans are ready for the post Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel, run first, run the dang ball Georgia offense that won titles, that kind of jump-started this Kirby era. It's not there. Like, I don't think Georgia's going to be a consistent running threat this year. And like you said, they don't have to if Carson's cooking like this and the receivers and Brock and company are working the way they are. And also when you have the offensive line that you do.
In fairness, none of those teams ever won titles.
Yeah.
The two that won titles, I think, 2021 was more of a run first team. Definitely had a great defense, but 2022 was definitely a pass first team as well.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, do you think fans are going to be okay with this? Are they aware that like this is now a new era of Georgia football and that the 5-star backs and the run first stuff is probably not happening anymore? Like, this is going to be a pass. Like when you get Ryan Puglisi or Dylan Raiola or like even Gunnar Stockton or whoever after this, like it's going to be the ball's in the quarterback's hands and we're passing it around to our different skill guys, our tight ends and everything else. Like this is going to be a pass first operation going forward.
I mean, I think that's just the way the game of football is going, so you're seeing more and more passing, but I think at the end of the day, the running game is never going to go away in terms of just football and having identity of what Georgia football is. I think if you can run on teams, everyone wants to run on teams. It's like that's the easiest, the safest way to just move the ball and milk the clock. It's always going to be the preferred way. I think if you can run, it's just most teams aren't able to build up the elite offensive line and the elite backs to consistently run like that. And Georgia is going to be one of those teams who typically has a great offensive line. This offensive line hasn't been great so far. They've been fine, but in terms of what the expectations were, I think they haven't been like the best in the country by any means. So, and you look at this running, I think this is more of an unprecedented lack of depth at Georgia's running back position. Like you see Dylan Bell is the second best running back right now, and he's a wide receiver. So I think this is not what Georgia wants to be necessarily. Like, I think it just shows like how far they've come in terms of they can win multiple ways now. Like they don't have to just be a run first team. And if that doesn't work, they can't move the ball. So I think the personnel on this team, it might just fit. And I think this is what people kind of thought coming into the year, with what Carson Beck is. It's like, with all due respect to Stetson Bennett, he wasn't the prototype. And that's kind of what made him so good. He did a lot of this improvising and eluding pressure, making plays with his legs, and he could throw a deep ball as well. But Carson Beck has a more prototype kind of skill set, and he seems to hit those, 15 to 25 yard intermediate throws just with a different, it just looks different coming out of his arm than Stetson Bennett. And I think Georgia's passing game looks a lot more dangerous than it did a year ago.
All right. There you go, Matt Green. Where are we going first here in our Week 7 pick'em, sir?
I'll say also Georgia Vanderbilt 51-6 is what I'll call for the score. Have the last two been shutouts? The last two, one of them was 52-0. I want to say they might have been 49-0 last couple of years. But yeah, I think it'll be a fairly easy game.
Vanderbilt's in some trouble too, because if you look at the rest of their schedule, Matt Green, like they are in jeopardy of ending the season. So you barely beat Hawaii 35-28. You crush Alabama A&M, good. You lose to UNLV, you lose to Wake, you lose to Kentucky, lose to Missouri, lose to Florida. Now you got Georgia, at Ole Miss, Auburn, at South Carolina, and at Tennessee. That looks like 1-11 to me, Matt Green. They're going to end the season on a 10-game losing or a 9-game losing streak. Or 2-10, rather. Yeah, 2-10.
Yeah, I could see it. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
10
someone's got to lose.
Whew, goodness gracious. It's a tough job, man. Clark Lee.
Yeah, last 2 years, 55-0 in 2022 and 62-0 in 2021. So I may have oversold it. It might be another third straight goose egg. Hey, Kirby's taking this personal after they took away senior night in 2020. Vanderbilt no showed for that contest.
I love that everyone
Georgia ramped up the intensity.
They run with this, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe it's true, but like,
I don't think that. I think Vanderbilt's just a bad team, and Georgia's a good team.
I think that's probably true, but it's like one of those things you just see pop up, and you're like, I'm not sure I buy that. It's really crossing Kirby's mind all that much 3 years later. Matt Green, where are we going first? Week 7.
All right, let's go to the game of the week, sir. I think this is the one we've been waiting for. This is I think you said it. What was your term a couple weeks ago? Like I said, the Crossroads Saturday. Mm-hmm. It's what this feels like. Like we're trying to finally learn some things about these teams. Mm-hmm. The Oregon Ducks go to Seattle to face the Washington Huskies. Washington is a 3-point favorite in this one, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like right now Washington is the most overrated team in college football. Like they have this like diet 2019 LSU thing going on, like with these receivers, kind of like Jefferson and Chase, you know. Penix putting up Joe Burrow type numbers, but like this team is like, we need to remind everyone this team has not played anybody that's good at all. Like I know Arizona gave USC another tough game, but Arizona, by all accounts, is not a good football team. Like this team this offense looks great, right? They throw the ball around. It's fun to watch, but I don't think we know how good this team is yet. Oregon, we still don't know how good Oregon is either. Like to be fair, like at Texas Tech, like that's the only other road game they've played. No, they've played 2 road games, I think, to this point. Is that right? Did they play at? I gotta look at Oregon's schedule, but regardless, I think
they only played 1.
Is that the only road game? I had them pulled up somewhere on one of these.
Off the top of my head, they played at Stanford and at Texas. Oh, at Texas Tech. They were
at
both,
Texas Tech.
Okay.
So that was obviously a close game, and Texas Tech has not been a great team so far, but these are the number 1 and 2 offenses in the country coming into this one. And I feel like, meaning they're both elite units, essentially, I think Oregon has way closer to an elite unit defensively than Washington does. Like, I know it's on the road, but I feel like I keep going back and forth on this one.
You're going back and forth. Are you going to wait for me to make my pick before you settle in?
I thought we were just having an open dialogue. I didn't know if I was making my pick yet. Go ahead.
He's down bad, folks. He's done the math on what he has to do to catch up here in the pick'em, and we're now in week 7. So Matt Green is making the smart choice where it's like, you know, in those guessing games with like guess how many gobstoppers there are in the container, and you wait for the other guy to say 74, and then you're like 75, and that's what I feel like is happening right here for Matt Green. But it's humbling. I like it that Matt Green is pulling out all the stops to catch up here. But look, I was going back and forth on this too, Matt Green. But I think this is the first time both teams have been in the top 10 and when they've met, which is pretty amazing when you consider Washington and Oregon's just past success over the years that they've actually never both been in the top 10 when they've played. Last year was one of my favorite games of the year. There was some really dumb stuff. I remember Oregon going for it in their own side of the field.
Dan Lanning.
Dan Lanning did not have his best day a year ago against this team.
Kirby taught him everything he knows, including the terrible fake punt early in your career.
There you go. I don't know if Oregon has another schedule loss on it. So when I was going through it, and I was like, if Oregon is able to pull this out and win this one on the road, I don't see anything else in the regular season that tells me that Oregon's going to lose another game. They get USC at home. I think that's a win. And then at Utah, maybe, but I think they actually match up better with Utah than just about anybody else in the Pac-12. UCLA is another team that's just physical, and we'll get to UCLA and why I love this Bruins team this year. And that was a great pick by me. I don't know if you remember last week, Matt Green, but that UCLA pick, whew, lock it in on my Bruins. Shout out to my guy, Chip Kelly. But I look at this and I'm like, I think this is their only loss. That's what I could look at the schedule where I'm like, I think Oregon's still going to the Pac-12 title game. I would not be surprised if we get a Pac-12 title rematch between these two teams. But my gut tells me they lose this game, and I think it might be another dumb ending. I think they might do something stupid. Bo Nix might have a really bad late game moment. And this is going to be rocking. UW is a sneaky great atmosphere. I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be electric. I think Michael Penix Jr. is he the betting Heisman favorite as of today? I think I saw that he was the leader right now. This is a big,
That's what I'm
big
saying. Betting Heisman favorite because you're blasting Michigan State and Boise State. What are we doing?
Well, I mean,
Why are we overreacting to these early season stats?
Well, he's leading the nation in passing yards a game at 444 yards, and it's not even close. How good and how ahead they are. Like, it's just a real machine where they're walking into 50 points in the first half if they want to. I think this weekend is going to be huge for a lot of reasons. And I found this stat where it said online that this is the highest. This game this weekend is the highest combined scoring average between Pac-12 teams of all time, which is pretty wild. So these two offenses are averaging a really crazy amount of points to this point in the year. Both offenses are rolling top notch. But Washington, 93rd in passing defense. That's the sneaky thing about them. There's some leakiness to this pass defense. Troy Franklin has been really good with Bo Nix this year. They're going to get their deep shots. I think Oregon's going to have a lot of big plays. I also think Washington's going to have a lot of big plays. Here's my favorite stat for you, Matt Green. You ready for this? Kalen DeBoer hasn't lost a home game at Washington yet. We're a year and a half in. Still hasn't lost one, Matt Green. At Arizona State and UCLA were his only two losses last year. He almost won at Oregon 2 years ago with Fresno, 24-31. He did it with lesser talent almost 2 years ago, Matt Green. I think I'm just riding with Kalen DeBoer here. I think there's something he's not going to lose at home. I think there's a good home atmosphere there. I think this is going to be a fun back and forth. I think this is, to take a word out of Spencer Rattler's mouth, this is their Super Bowl. Big recruiting battle, both going to the Big Ten next year. This game means a lot for a lot of reasons, and I think Oregon can bounce back, but I think Washington needs this more at this present time. Give me the Huskies 51. Give me the Ducks 49.
Wow. A real shootout.
I think Oregon covers, but in a really weird way.
All right, so you're taking Washington. So Oregon at home this year averaging 59 points a game. On the road averaging a measly 40 points a game. We all know about Bo Nix on the road. You know, there's a lot of talk about Bo Nix's past, how he does on the road. But I just look at this Washington team. I feel like Oregon is a more built program than Washington. It feels like Oregon's a year ahead of Washington. Like the home crowd is always making me feel mixing up my words there. It's what's making me lean Washington. But I think at the end of the day, Oregon is a better team. And I think Oregon's going to find a way to win this game. So give me the Ducks to go on the road, get it done.
Wow. We disagree right out of the gate here.
We're starting off early.
All right. Where are we going next, Matt Green?
Where are we going next? Our next game on here. Let's go to good old Rocky Top. Texas A&M. Oh man, I think I was really buying A&M last week. Max Johnson, I think, really let me down. I think I wasn't expecting as big of a drop off at the quarterback position from Connor Weigman to Max Johnson. I think that's what ultimately why they weren't able to beat Alabama a week ago. Ultimately, that Alabama game, so Tennessee comes in 3-point favorite at home in this one. I think ultimately Texas A&M dared Jalen Milroe to beat them, and he actually did it. And I think that's what surprised everybody because they shut down Alabama's run game. And I think that's got to be encouraging, but it's also at home. It's like playing at home versus going on the road. A&M's played one road game so far this year, and it was at Miami. And we all know how outrageous that Miami atmosphere is, right? The fans may have actually shown up to that game. And Texas A&M lost that game. That's the only road game they've played so far this year. Somehow they started the year with 3 straight SEC home games, but now they got to go into Knoxville. And I think if they couldn't beat Jalen Milroe at home, I don't see how they necessarily beat Joe Milton on the road. Like I think the way they just kind of dared Jalen Milroe to beat them, I think Joe Milton will be able to do that. And I don't know that they'll be able to stop the run on the road as well as they were able to against Alabama. So give me Tennessee to win and cover.
Okay. This is tough, Matt Green, because I don't think this is like going to be one of those good test games for people who have no idea what Tennessee is. Because I think a lot of people are going to tune into this game at 3:30 on CBS Saturday and be very surprised to see what Tennessee looks like, because this is their first CBS game this fall. They get back-to-back CBS primetime here with Alabama the following week. It's a big, big weekend. A lot of big recruits here this weekend for Tennessee. Obviously, a lot of big ones next week. A lot were here for South Carolina, and they made real big progress with some key 5 stars and stuff with their drubbing of South Carolina. Here's the thing. Tennessee is arguably the best rushing attack in the SEC this year. They are a ground and pound team. That is what they have had to do week in, week out to score 30 plus, to bury South Carolina. They take their deep shots when they can. Joe Milton threw 2 picks in that game. One was really bad. One was just basically a punt. And that one, his knee still seems pretty banged up from an awkward near sack against UTSA a couple weeks ago. He gets 2 weeks to heal. Heupel, coming off a bye here, is critical. He's undefeated coming off a bye at Tennessee. Tennessee obviously hasn't lost a home game since 2021 under Josh Heupel. That's a big part of your thing here. Jimbo Fisher has not won on the road in the SEC at A&M since when he's been an underdog at any point. So this would be a first. Right? Yeah, so if he is able to pull this off, this would be a first for Jimbo. I would pick A&M outright if Connor Weigman was under center for A&M. Max Johnson has his flaws. Too. And I think that's why the line's 3. It's a pick 'em because it's Max Johnson. I think A&M would actually be favored coming into this game if Connor Weigman was under center for the Aggies. That offense is legit. Like, A&M has star power out wide. They are going to push this Tennessee secondary. Danico Slaughter needs to be healthy. We'll see how many snaps he plays for Tennessee at corner. Tennessee has not had to, they didn't have to really worry on the back end as much. Kamala Hadden obviously had the pick 6 that people remember. James Pierce got home a bunch. They are going to have to win big time against this Texas A&M offensive line. And they're going to have to continue to get home. They've done well on the sack front to this point. James Pierce has had a breakout season. Tyler Barron's been great. They're going to have to get home and make Max Johnson's life miserable because there is so much talent in this receiver room at Texas A&M. I've seen this story before with this Tennessee secondary. If they're not getting home, it's going to be a rough afternoon for Tennessee's defense, even being at home. On the flip side, A&M's got a very, very good rush defense. Very, very good front 7, and they are going to get home. Like Tennessee, the tempo helps sacks. It will always make life easier for their quarterbacks in the offensive line. To not be able to sub, defensive linemen get tired. The sacks just won't be as prevalent when the offense is cooking. That being said, if Tennessee is stuffed early and if Tennessee is not able to move the line of scrimmage and we're looking at 2nd and 10, 3rd and 11 more often than not, this gets ugly and it looks like a low-scoring game. Tennessee can't have this be low-scoring. That's exactly what A&M wants this to be. A&M wants this to be 27-23. Tennessee loses that game every single time. Where this game has to be is kind of what it was against South Carolina. Like, Tennessee has to do it in a different way, though. And this is, I think, the biggest game for Joe Milton in his 3-year career at Tennessee, because the difference with this particular game than any other game, to even the Florida game, is this one for Joe, he has to be the best player on the field for them to win this game. And what I mean by that is Joe has to play the best game of his career on Saturday, because I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to use the run-first approach that they have thrived off of to get to this point in the year where they've only got one loss and expect to beat Texas A&M. Joe is going to have to make plays downfield. This offense cannot be as vertically challenged as they've been all season long and not to complete any of these big shots. Joe had one, and Squirrel White was didn't even see the ball against South Carolina. It was one. You were not beating A&M playing that way. You're just not this Saturday. So I think Joe has to be good deep. He has to be challenging for this A&M secondary, because this A&M secondary is not good. Jalen Milroe had a field day against this group. That's the reason Alabama beat A&M on the road. You're at home. Joe has to be as good as Jalen Milroe. He has to have a breakout game that he has not played this year. Joe Milton has not been great at all this year. He's been okay. He's been a game manager. So you don't
see any way that this offense runs on Texas A&M?
No, I don't think it's going to be as bad as other teams have fared, like Alabama. I just don't think they have the same talent. Like Jalen Wright's he's averaging almost 10 yards a carry for a reason. Like Jalen Wright's a dude. They're going to make their bones in between the tackles. They're going to get theirs. But do I think they're running for 267, averaging 6-7 yards a carry?
No, I don't think they have to do that. But I think if you're saying it's all on Joe Milton, it's you're expecting Tennessee to get held under 100 yards rushing, or maybe 50 yards rushing, that Joe Milton's going to had to be the reason that this offense scores 35 points or something. I think there's a chance, just because you're at home, there's something about, the crowd, the offensive line gets going, you can break a couple runs, get some momentum. I could see a game where Joe Milton doesn't have to be the hero, but they're actually able to establish the run. And this game goes a little bit different than the Alabama game did, even if the score line is similar.
I just think he's going to be in 2nd and long, 3rd and long several times in this game. And I think he can't miss. Brew McCoy's out. He's gone for the year. Caleb Webb, time to grow up. True sophomore. You got to play. You're filling that spot. You need Dante Thornton healthy. But I do not think, let me just go ahead and say this. If we do not see multiple explosive plays down the field from Joe Milton in this game, Tennessee did not win. That is something that I do not think will happen. Tennessee will have to show. I'm not saying they have to be exactly like Hendon Hooker at home and just the Jalen Hyatt show against Alabama, but they have to do more than what we've seen to this point for them to win this game. The talent's too close. The front seven for A&M's too big, too strong, too good, that I just don't think you're going to be able to play that style. South Carolina's a different, battered beast. A&M's a lot better. And I just don't think you're going to be able to get away with that against A&M.
Yeah, especially you've only seen Tennessee play 2 SEC games so far. So
they bombed their one pretty good road test. That's it.
So it's really hard to know which coach you think is under more pressure in this game.
Pressure in what context? What do you mean? Job security?
Just which one's under more pressure, whatever you deem pressure.
Well, I don't think Jimbo's because Jimbo gets a free pass. Connor's out. So because you lost your 5-star quarterback who was playing really well and your offense was cooking, and I think
he's getting too much money to get a free pass for any of these losses.
Well, I think that's the other part of it is he's got so much money coming in. It's he's not getting fired this year. I was listening to TexAg's guy this week. It's he's not getting fired anytime soon. It's still just we're a ways away from that happening. So Heupel though, you lose this, you're I think at Alabama's a loss no matter what now. I'm leaning towards that one, just with Joe and what we've seen from this group. I don't see a path to winning it in Tuscaloosa next week. So you lose this one, then you lose that one, and then suddenly you're 0-3 against A&M, Bama, and Florida with Georgia still on the schedule, and at Kentucky and at Mizzou. Like, neither of those are at home. And I'm not saying you're losing both of those, but, like, do I think that they could absolutely lose at Mizzou? Yes. Yes, I do. Do I think they'll lose at Kentucky? No. I don't think he'll ever lose to a Stoops. But I do think it's just, you're staring at 7-5, potentially, if you drop this one. But if you win this one, 9-3 is just kind of a cakewalk to me. I think there's a lot of momentum to get to 9-3, and that's a huge win.
I think there is a chance. Like, I was not impressed with Max Johnson, but there is a chance that A&M is one of the better teams left on their schedule. I guess they still got Alabama and Georgia, but A&M could be the third best team on the schedule, like easily, for the rest of the way. So they could still beat Missouri and Kentucky and everything. But yeah, I think that definitely turns the heat up on Heupel a little bit more in terms of those other big games. But I just think at home, I don't know. Let me be clear.
Let me give my pick, and I'll say this. Go ahead. I'm picking Tennessee 37. I'm going to say Tennessee 41, Texas A&M 27.
41-27?
Yes.
So by 2 touchdowns. Okay. See, I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is going to be like a 31-24.
I don't think Tennessee wins that. I think if we're near that, I don't think they're winning that game. I think for Tennessee have to win. Like, I want to see, like, you better be near 40. Like, you better, because that shows me your offense is clicking. When it's painful, I don't know. I think we know very early with Heupel teams which way it's going. And if it's close and low scoring like that,
like, this team is definitely better than South Carolina. They're definitely better than Florida. So I think there's a chance that, like you said, A&M gets some stops, but I think this Tennessee, I think if their secondary is leaving the windows open that they were against Alabama, I think Milton can hit those. Like, he can't run like Jalen Milroe, but I guess I don't believe in Joe Milton as much as I believe in Neyland Stadium being good enough for 4 or 5 points in this one.
It's going to rain too, by the way, which I think probably helps Tennessee.
Which maybe, I don't even know who that benefits.
It benefits the running team because it means we can maybe get away with just running the ball and being slippery and bouncing around. I don't know. Seems like the running teams benefit more from those kind of conditions.
Texas A&M, not too shabby running the ball either, though.
They're no Tennessee Volunteers. Matt Green, where are we going next?
All right, let's keep it moving. Florida, speaking of the SEC East, we got Florida at South Carolina, and South Carolina is actually favored in this one. 2 points at Williams-Brice Stadium. Man, so I look at this game. This is a tough one for me. I feel like it's one of those weird situations where I feel like what teams, everything's about matchups. And what both of these teams do poorly, I feel like the other team also does poorly. Like, I feel like Florida is a bad run defense, and South Carolina's really not going to run the ball at all. Like they did, the guy had 100 yards in the Tennessee game, but he broke like 175-yard run. Not that didn't happen, but they just haven't had a good run offense all year. And then you got South Carolina on the other side, has had a terrible pass defense. And Florida wants to run first. So I really don't know how these teams match up against each other. Like, this feels like one of those games that could go to overtime, or just either one could just blow out the other. Like, I have no idea where to sit on this one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a gigantic one for South Carolina. I think it's a sneaky must win, because then you're staring at 2-4. And I don't know where the bowl eligibility is out the window at that point. And then what are you looking at with Shane Beamer? Like, what is the temperature for him? You just made an offensive.
I think this is a must win for both as far as bowl eligibility goes.
I think just because it's year 2 for Napier, like, it's not a good look to go. You get the home win last week, sandwiched in between potentially 2 losses to Kentucky and South Carolina, which is not something that should really ever happen at Florida. But like, Billy needs to clean up the road issues. Everyone knows about the issues on the road. You got embarrassed at Kentucky. I don't think that will happen here. I think this is a better matchup for them. But here's the issue for me. This is the stat that I came down on that I think will end up meaning that South Carolina gets this home dub. Florida's 105th in sacks right now. They're not going to get home on Spencer Rattler. And from what we've seen from Spencer Rattler when he has time and Spencer Rattler is able to find Xavier Legette and company, like Juice Wells will not be available, but I tend to favor Spencer Rattler in South Carolina against defenses that are not going to make life a living hell for him right now, because he plays at a really elite level this year when he has time, when he's able to do Spencer Rattler things in the pocket. So I think this is going to be a big Spencer Rattler come revenge game too, because if you remember, he was awful in the Florida game last year, and then he has the Tennessee Clemson games back to back to get his hot streak going leading into this year. I also just don't think UF is a team that plays well from behind, and this is going to be a very strong atmosphere. Williams-Brice, an underrated SEC home atmosphere over there in Columbia. So I think this is going to ultimately be a fun, chaotic game. A lot of dumb turnovers, maybe some bad coaching on both sides, but I think this is a big one. And Florida is 30-10-3 in this series all time. But look, they also own the Kentucky series for a really long time, and Kentucky's won 3 straight there. I think South Carolina gets a much needed win here to get to 3-4, and Billy Napier's road woes continue. So give me South Carolina 31, give me Florida 29.
Oh wait, that's a push right there, sir. You got to give me
another
2.
Yeah, I thought it was 2.5.
It's 2.
Oh, I hate the solid ones. Let's do fine. I'll do 31-28 because I think I'll just say South Carolina wins and covers then.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think this is going to be a fun one. I think ultimately the Napier 1-5 on the road. I feel like that's like Florida's got to prove to me that they can win on the road. So give me South Carolina to win this one. I'm going to say like a 37-33. Like I think this one's going to be like a lot of fun.
All right,
like, you don't know if it's 2 good teams you're watching, but I think it's going to be a fun game to watch.
I think South Carolina, I don't know. Never mind. I'll hold that after watching Tennessee drop South Carolina. I'll hold that back. All right, where are we going next?
Let's keep it moving. USC going on the road after playing with fire every week. They're going on the road at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a 2.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see this one going, sir?
Notre Dame, man, their schedule the last 4 weeks has been just brutal. Duke, Ohio State, Louisville, and now USC. And a lot of these in primetime with all the eyeballs and this, that, and the other. But here's the thing. They're going to avenge their recent failures. The Louisville loss was bad, but Louisville's a really good team, and they look like they just might like they might push for a New Year's Six game. Like they look really, really good. And they might, like, what if Louisville's just the best team in the ACC this year? Like, what if that's just where we're at? That offense is great, and Jeff Brom's a really, really good coach. But it's not a bad loss for Notre Dame. Caleb Williams leads the nation in just about everything. It's like he's number 1 in pass efficiency at 206.4, passing touchdowns. He's got 22, 172 total points. He's averaging, he's second in yards per attempt at 10.96. They're 7th in total offense. However, in the last 11 games against Notre Dame, USC is 4-7, sir. USC doesn't own this rivalry. Like, this is 2 competing styles. Notre Dame's going to be up for this one. This is their last big rivalry game left in the calendar here. They remember what happened 10 men on the field to close against Ohio State a few weeks ago. This is a huge game for them. Ohio State or USC has been playing with fire with this defense. Like, they're on the road at Arizona State struggling. Like, each week, this defense just shows how exposed they really are. And this is not a serious Pac-12 title team. This is not a serious college football playoff team. It's just not the case with Alex Grinch in this defense. They're going to get bit at some point, and this is where they get bit first. They get bit on the road at Notre Dame. Sam Hartman has a good bounce-back game. I think Audric Estime, who struggled last week against Louisville, I think the running game gets back on track for Notre Dame. The offensive line gets back on track. I think they dominate the line of scrimmage, and I think Notre Dame ultimately wins here. Give me Notre Dame 35, USC 31.
You said something there when you were talking about USC. You said they're not a serious team. And I think that's who Lincoln Riley is. And I think he's at some point, this guy, there's something, the flaw in this guy is that, he's obviously an offensive mastermind, but there's something that he doesn't do to motivate his team on a week in, week out basis. But when you're playing at Notre Dame, you don't have to motivate your team. I think everyone is sleeping on USC because what they've done against some of these lesser opponents. And obviously the defense is not good, but teams like USC come to play in the big games. And this offense is going to show out in the big game. Caleb Williams is going to seize the moment, have his, show everyone why he's the best player in college football. Like, Notre Dame has gotten worse every week, honestly. They've played a tough slate like the last 3 or 4 weeks, but they've looked increasingly worse each week. And obviously it was a tough couple of road games in there, but I'm not a believer that Sam Hartman just elevated this team. It felt like early on it was Notre Dame's doing traditional Notre Dame stuff, and now with Sam Hartman, they're going to have a passing attack too. And I feel like we haven't really seen that. We haven't necessarily seen them take that next step. And I think USC, with how much offense they have, they're going to give up some points. Is going to be probably a track meet because USC doesn't know how to win any other way. But I think USC goes on the road and gets it done. I think this is going to be like a 42-35 or something like that. But I think USC, Caleb Williams is going to throw for 5 touchdowns. This is going to be USC is going to get it done.
Wow. I did not expect this. Okay. We disagree again, sir.
Moving on, the Miami Hurricanes, somehow the luckiest person of us not having a podcast on Sunday was Mario Cristobal, and his absolute just inexcusable, the most inexcusable loss in the history of professional sports, or not professional sports,
amateur,
the history
sir.
of American sports. You remember there was they call it the Miracle of the Meadowlands, right?
Mm-hmm.
That Eagles Giants one when Herm Edwards recovered the fumble and took it back. The victory formation was literally created the week after that happened in the 70s or early 80s, whenever the hell that was. Because we know that this can happen. And the fact that it happened to Mario Cristobal a couple of years ago at Stanford too, it's just what are you doing? Oh man, honestly, you know what they were doing? No one wants to say it. They were trying to get that guy 100 yards. He had 99 yards. They were trying to get him. Instead of football, I'm definitely running the ball, getting my guy 100 yards, get his stats up. That's definitely what they were doing. But backfired. Georgia Tech got the big win. Miami going on the road this week. How do they bounce back from that? They're a 3.5-point dog at North Carolina. And I think North Carolina might just actually be a good football team. They got Tez Walker now. Great story. This North Carolina offense just looks really explosive. Syracuse came in a week ago and they absolutely blasted them. So I think Miami's better than Syracuse. Miami should be a 5-0 team right now. It's hard to know how to value them. It feels like this loss is going to have lasting effects. It was just such a terrible way to lose a game. But I think I'm going to have to take North Carolina to win and cover in this one.
It's funny. It's should it have lasting effects? You saw the player who was zoomed in. He was what are we doing on all that? And obviously it's a terrible way to lose, this, that, and the other. But now I think people are going to overreact the other way, where I'm Miami's good. I understand that was the dumbest way to lose possible, but they should have won that game. They thoroughly outplayed Georgia Tech all night long. Maybe
not thoroughly if it was if it was that close at the end.
They blew out A&M at home a few weeks prior. Shannon Dawson's been a great OC to this point. Tyler Van Dyke's been dealing. They're a top 10 offense to this point. Their defense has been much improved this year. The coordinator hires by Mario Cristobal this offseason were top notch. They're a really good team. They're a top 15, top 17 team. To this point, I think people are going too far. The problem is, like you said, North Carolina is also a top 15 team. I think they're borderline top 10. And I'll talk about who I think they're better than right now in the ACC in a second. But I saw this on Fanside today. Miami has visited Kenan Stadium, which I did not know was the name of North Carolina's stadium. I'd realized while reading this, I was I had no idea what it was before, but now I know. 9 times since 2004. And of those matchups, 7 of them have been decided by 6 points or less, and another by 9 points. This is going to be a dumb game. This is going to be high scoring. This is going to be a lot of back and forth. This is going to be like UNC App State. This is going to be wild, I think, in a multitude of ways. Miami's 58th against the pass. It's not where you want to be when you're facing Drew May and company. They're really good against the run. That's okay, but it's just not a good matchup for Miami in that regard. They turned the ball over 5 times against Tech last week and still should have won the game. This is my reason I'm going North Carolina here. Don't trust Mario Cristobal in close games. And I don't see there being any way this is not a close game. Give me North Carolina 48, Miami 45.
Oh man, going high score in there.
I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
I'm with you there. I'm going to take UNC as well. I'm thinking like a 38-31 in this game. So yeah, we'll agree on that one. Keeping it moving. Back to the SEC East, we got Missouri Tigers going on the road at Kentucky, and Kentucky is a 2.5-point favorite in this one. Kentucky has won 7 of the last 8 in this series against the Tigers. How do you see this one going, sir?
All right, so this is another sneaky big one for both sides. UK coming off a really tough road loss, obviously. They've got the highs of highs against Florida and then the lows of lows at Georgia. Mizzou, heartbreaker. You blow it late against LSU. You should have gotten a win there if your defense holds a little bit longer. Bad pick by Brady Cook, but Brady Cook was dealing. He's been a top 3 quarterback in the SEC the majority of this year. I don't know who bounces. Like, does Mizzou take it as more of a motivational loss and they bounce back, or does Kentucky, like, we're not that Kentucky team that played in Athens? Like, who bounces back stronger from very, very different kinds of losses against teams with much better talent than they do? But, like, I trust Brady Cook so much more than I trust Devin Leary. It took a crazy offense to beat Mizzou at home last week. I think it's going to take another big-time offense to beat Mizzou at home. I think it's not like a rowdy atmosphere. It's one of the worst in the SEC. But Mizzou is a good football team this year. They're a legitimate top 25 team. Luther Burden is fantastic. I think he leads the SEC in receiving yards.
Leads the country in receiving yards, doesn't he?
Well, there you go. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's been fantastic. So he's going to have a big day against Kentucky. And Missouri is number 29 in rush defense, and that's Ray Davis's calling card. Kentucky, for them to have a chance in this one, they're going to have to be able to run all over Mizzou, and I don't think that's going to be the case. Like, remember, Kansas State came into here, who's built like Kentucky a few weeks ago, and lost. Mizzou obviously won on a last-second field goal. I think this is a big win for Mizzou. I think Mizzou gets the dub here. I think Kentucky is 108th in first downs total to this point. Mizzou 10th in the country in long scrimmage plays. I don't think Kentucky's going to be able to keep up with Mizzou in this one. So give me Mizzou 38, Kentucky 21. I think Mizzou wins comfortably here.
Wow. On the road, you think Missouri's going to get it done?
Missouri's at home.
This is at Kentucky.
Oh, it is at Kentucky. My bad. I thought this was at Missouri.
Did that change your mind? Because
that did change my mind a little bit. Okay, I still have Mizzou winning, but for whatever reason, I had this as Mizzou. That was my bad. I had it flipped for me. No, give me. Go back to you.
When it comes to these types of games, like these teams that we're not sure if they're average, because you said like this is a sneaky like good game or whatever. Or I feel like it's because we're trying to establish what these teams' floors are, right? Mm-hmm. So like they have to beat these other teams that are that could finish 4th or 5th place in the SEC East to see kind of how good this season can be, and that's like one of these kind of crossroads games. So I just look at these types of teams, just middle of the conference type teams. They feel like they're completely different at home versus on the road, and I don't know what Missouri is like, because at this point, everyone's scoring on LSU, right? So obviously this Missouri offense looked really good last week, but LSU was just scoring more. But I think Kentucky at home, I think they're able to run the ball a little better. Definitely better than they were against Georgia a week ago. Maybe not how they did against Florida, but I kind of lean Kentucky to bounce back. Like we're kind of overreacting to Kentucky just getting dominated by the number one team in the country. But like this is still a good team, and I'm not sure Missouri is a good team yet. Like they looked good against LSU, like they looked good against Kansas State, but like they've been playing everybody close to this point, even the bad teams. And same for Kentucky. They've had some closer games with some of those cupcakes in the early season, but I'm going to side with Kentucky. That Kroger Field, give me Kentucky to win this one, like 28-24.
I'm going back to Kentucky, Matt Green. I didn't realize this was at Kentucky. I thought my whole argument was at home and them having to get up and put up. I think this is close. Bad news though. Kentucky's winning this game. I'm going to say Kentucky 31, Mizzou 28.
As long as you issue a formal apology for your stance earlier, that I would base my picks on what you say, sir. How dare
that was
you?
my bad.
Flopping over here.
Well, hold on. I jotted
what is
down
this, spring break. We got the flip flops out.
Look, man, and that was the most. Do you feel good about that one? All right, continue on.
I was proud of that one.
Oh my goodness.
All right, I don't have much to say about this next one. I know you're the big Florida State guy in the Thomas family. We got Syracuse going on the road, 17.5-point dog at Florida State. And I after a week ago, what North Carolina just did to this team in Chapel Hill, I don't see it going any better in Doak Campbell Stadium on Saturday. So give me Florida State to win this one. Like what was the score I picked? I think I got 41-20. Give me Florida State.
Not so fast, my friend. Syracuse. They've been beaten up a little bit. Dino Babers talking about like the fact that like they just don't have depth in the area of the transfer portal. Some of these smaller schools just don't have it because they move on to the bigger programs. Remember, like Virginia lost their best corner to FSU, who had a great year, and it's like, all right, well that kind of sucks in conference and everything else. But Hughes is legitimately good. Dino Babers is going to have this team bowling. They were undefeated before the last 2 weeks that have been really rough. They were outscored 71-21 in their back-to-back losses here. Here's what people don't remember. They almost won at Clemson last year. This is not that great of a difference. Like, same quarterback here. Obviously, you're missing Sean Tucker, but it wasn't like the offense was rolling at Clemson. The defense is pretty solid. Like, Rocky Long calling the defense here for the Orangemen. They get up for these games. They're well coached on both sides of the ball. They have a strong identity. Guess who plays down to their competition, Matt Green? The Florida State Seminoles. Guess who's not a top 4 team in the country? The Florida State Seminoles. Guess who's the biggest fraud right now in the country? It's the Florida State Seminoles. They are going to get got. Jordan Travis is not a Heisman quarterback. You're playing with your food against Boston College, one of the worst Power 5 schools in the country right now. You play with your food against Virginia Tech this past week. They give you a hard game. You look at it and I'm like, these are home games. Like, they should be getting better. Florida State is not there. Like Jordan Travis, like Bud Elliott was tweeting out like, ooh, like another underthrow by Jordan Travis on Saturday. Like, I don't know if he's not healthy. I don't know if he's just not that great, but it's also like, oh, right, he was a 3-star quarterback. He's not like this premier guy at Florida State. He's just been around for a long time. He's gotten progressively better year over year. I don't think he's a Heisman type guy. I don't think he's a college playoff type quarterback to this point. I think he's solid, but he has some issues, and they have an unbelievable supporting cast around him, especially out wide with Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, and company. So he's doing enough to keep this team undefeated, and you have some big wins, obviously, at Clemson. But I think Syracuse is getting up for this game. Drake May destroyed you. I don't think that's happening here. Noles are 77th in long passing plays. To put that in perspective, that's behind Syracuse and Tennessee. They're not hitting deep shots. They have this talent out wide, but it's just not all there. I don't see it, Matt Green. I'm not saying Florida State's going to lose this game, but
you're calling the upset.
They're absolutely not covering 17 against Syracuse. So give me Florida State 27, Syracuse 20. I think this is going to be close late. I think Florida State's going to be sweating this late. And I think eventually Florida State, like at Pitt's the one I got circled for their first loss of the year. But Florida State, not better than North Carolina.
Florida State, not better than North Carolina. Now that's a hot take right there, sir. I'm high on the Tar Heels, but I I feel like they still had a ceiling. I don't think they can win the ACC. I think Florida State's still in the driver's seat.
They're in the driver's seat, no question, but I don't think they're going to be able to handle Drake May and company in the ACC title game. Don't think so. North Carolina's the better team this year.
We don't get that regular season, right?
No, we do not.
Florida State, North Carolina. Yeah, that could be a good one. Was that your preseason prediction, ACC prediction? Let me see. I had that pulled up. What was your preseason? We both had Clemson, didn't we?
I think I had Clemson.
Yeah, I had Clemson, North Carolina. You had Clemson, Miami. So we'll see how that works out. Neither one of us was believing Florida State, so I've changed my tune.
All right, where are we going next, Matt Green?
Let's keep it moving to the Big 12. We got Kansas at Oklahoma State. Does Oklahoma State have any of that magic left from a week ago? We know how I feel about the weekday road game. Kansas State came in. They ran into a buzzsaw. That was the Oklahoma State Cowboys, just turning the ball over. But it felt like it was just like a perfect storm, right? Like Kansas State moved the ball pretty well. Like they had over 200 yards rushing in that game. But if you turn the ball over like that, weird things happen on Friday nights. However, Jalen Daniels is doubtful for this one. And I feel like we left Oklahoma State for dead, but I'm going to say they do it again. This Boone Pickens Stadium, Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is a rowdy environment. Home dog of the week, Oklahoma State. 3 points. They're winning outright. They're beating the Jayhawks.
Wow. I didn't expect this.
I can't tell you why. Alan Bowman didn't play well last week, but it was like this home crowd, they got some energy going now. Is Kansas better than Kansas State?
No.
I don't think so. Especially not without Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, it's going to be another Bean game. I think this is like his third straight game. It sucks that Jalen Daniels can't stay healthy because he's just so much fun to watch. Alan Bowman, not the guy, but they got the upset last week. Kansas won big last week. Here's the, Oklahoma State, their offense, like you said, still terrible. Offense per game, 357 yards, 89th in the country. Alan Bowman's only completing 53% of his passes. So that's just not where you want to be. They're S&P Plus. They're 50th in defense, which is okay. Not where it was a couple years ago. But, do you think maybe Gundy and his staff has turned the corner? They're 58. They're right there in the middle. They're just a dead middle of the road college football team this year. And they don't turn the ball over, though. They've only committed 5 turnovers. They're not exciting. They're not flashy. They're not fun. They also just don't turn the ball over. They don't force turnovers. But they've won 9 of 10 in the last 10 years of this series, Matt Green. The Cowboys usually have a talent advantage here. It's in Stillwater. This is going to be ugly. Give me the Cowboys to win back-to-back weeks here and dominate the state of Kansas. So give me Oklahoma State 24, Kansas 17.
Yeah, give me 23-20.
Did you have Oklahoma State winning too, or no?
Yes, we both have Oklahoma State on that one. Keeping it moving. This used to always be one of my favorite games. It was always start the SEC season. We always had Florida, Tennessee early on, like week 3, week 4. But it seemed like maybe the last weekend of September, we'd get Auburn, LSU. It was always one of those early rivalries. Now I guess Georgia Auburn is a September rivalry. It grinds my gears. But Auburn comes into this one at LSU, and Auburn's an 11-point dog on the road. And LSU hasn't been beating anybody handedly early on. This game used to always be, those 13-10 slugfests. Now I'm not sure either of these teams has a defense. I guess Auburn's defense isn't necessarily bad. Auburn doesn't have an offense, and LSU doesn't have a defense. So when I look at it, Auburn has scored how many? They've scored 13 points a game against 15 points a game against Power 5 competition this year. This offense is just really bad. They're not playing in Jordan-Hare Stadium, so there's not going to be any super power that's going to elevate their level of play. I don't think there's any way they can really hang with LSU.